Hello students, how are you? Hope all of you are fine. So today in this class we are going to read a new chapter named Human Involvement, and this is being written by Indira Gandhi, okay, the first lady Prime Minister of our country. But before this chapter we have discussed about our environment and impact of global warming. All these two chapters are already discussed. So here the writer, Miss Lady, has given her own view on environment. So let us see what is written. I means what? Initially it is written I had. It means it is particularly written by the same lady. So Indira Gandhi, she was having good fortune of growing up with a sense of kinship with nature in all its manifestations. Birds, plants, stones were companies, and sleeping under the star-strewn sky, I became familiar with the names and movements of the constellations. But my deep interest in this, our only earth, was not for itself, but as a fit for man, fit home for man. So here, Indira Gandhi has mentioned that she is quite fortunate because she has taken birth on this earth and she can sleep under the sky that is filled with stars. And after all, she is speaking that she is lucky, as well as people are lucky because they have taken birth on this earth. One can't be truly human and civilized unless one looks upon not only all fellow men but all creations with the eyes of a friend. So here, Indira Gandhi has given a true definition of humanism and who is a human being. And she has mentioned that a person who is not only looking his kinmen means the people who are living in neighborhood, but with all the creations with the eye of a friend, because friends are normally good to you. So if you are able to see each and everything with the eyes of a friend, then only you are truly a human being. Throughout India, edicts carved on rocks and iron pillars are reminders that 22 centuries ago, Emperor Asoka defined a king's duty as not merely to protect citizens but punish wrongdoers, but also to preserve animals, life, and forests. And now she has thrown light on the work of Asoka, and she has mentioned that Asoka had shown that it is not only the duty of an emperor to win the enemies, but it is also the duty of a king to take care of the animals and to the plants also. And Asoka was the first and perhaps the only monarch until very recently to forbid the killing of a large number of species of animals for sport or food, foreshadowing some of the conscience of his countrymen. He went further, regretting the carnage of his military conquest and enjoying upon his successes to find their only pleasure in the peace that comes through righteousness. And all of you are familiar with Asoka the Great. And it is mentioned Asoka was the single king recently who is not only taking care of the people, but he was also taking care of the birds and animals as well as trees. And he has mentioned that war is not the only thing, and they should not hunt the animals for sport or for food, but they should be in harmony with all these things. It is said that in country after country, progress should become synonymous with an assault on nature. We who are a part of nature and dependent on her for every need speak constantly about exploiting nature. So we are depending on nature, but still we are also gossiping on a topic which is known as exploiting nature. When the highest mountain in the world was claimed in 1953, the Everest, Jawaharlal Nehru objected to the phrase conquest of Everest, which he thought was arrogant. So, in the year 1953, Everest was being climbed. And when it was being spoken that conquest of Everest, Jawaharlal Nehru claimed that this phrase is arrogant. And it is surprising that this lack of consideration and the constant need to prove one's superiority should be projected onto our treatment of our fellow men. I remembered Edward Thompson, a British writer and a good friend of India, once telling Mr. Gandhi that wildlife was first disappearing, remarked the Mahatma. And then she has mentioned that Edward Thompson, a British writer and a good friend of India, once he had told to Mahatma Gandhi that wildlife is very fast disappearing from the earth, and in response to it, Mahatma said that it is disappearing in the jungles but increasing in the town. What does it mean? It means people are becoming animal day by day. On the one hand, the rich look askance at our continuing poverty. On the other hand, warn us against their own methods. We don't wish to improve the environment any further, and yet we can't for a moment forget the grim poverty of large number of people. So at the same time, we can't forget the poverty of people. At the same time, we are also not interested to develop the environment. Are not poverty and need the greatest polluters? And it is mentioned, are not the poverty the greatest polluters? Is to some extent it is also correct. For instance, unless we are in a position to provide employment and purchasing power for the daily necessities of the tribal people and those who live in or around jungles, we can't prevent them from combing the forest for food and livelihood, from poaching and from despoiling the vegetation. So it is mentioned, people who are underprivileged, people who are living in the forest, unless and until we provide them good facilities, we can't expect that they will preserve the nature. Definitely, they will cut down the trees. They will cut down the complete forest for cultivation, for cooking purpose. When they themselves feel deprived, how can we argue the preservation of animals? So when those people are deprived of all these things, how can we talk about the preservation? The rivers, how can we speak to those who live in villages and slums about keeping the oceans, the rivers and their air cleaner when their own lives are contaminated at the source? So how can we speak to the people who are living in slums, in the villages, to keep the environment clean because their life is contaminated from the source? The environment can't be improved in conditions of poverty, and this is a fact. If there is poverty, environment can't progress. For example, people who are using LPG gas. Okay, if people are not having money, definitely they will cut down the trees and will burn it because it is free of cost. How can they purchase the LPG gas? So the same thing is being mentioned, that if poverty is there, we can't develop the condition of the environment. Nor can poverty be eradicated without the use of science and technology. But at the same time, poverty can't be eradicated by using science and technology. Means without the use of science and technology, we can't eradicate poverty. It is an oversimplification to blame all the world's problems on increasing population. Countries with but a small fraction of the world population consume a bulk of the world's production of minerals, fossil fuels and so on. So what is mentioned here? Means it is mentioned that the world's big problem is population increase, and countries with but a small fraction of the world population, so some countries are there, they are having small population but they eat bulk up, means they take too much, they use too much world's production of minerals, fossil fuels and so on. Thus we see that when it comes to the depletion of natural resources and environmental pollution, the increase of one inhabitant in an affluent country at his level of living is equivalent to an increase of many Asians, Africans or Latin Americans at their current material level living. So here what is mentioned, that when we are talking about the depletion of natural resources, at the same time we should try to increase the level of people, increase the spanning level of people, because without it, if the country is poor, if the people are poor, we can't do it. We can't prevent pollution. The inherent conflict is not between conservation and development, but between environment and the reckless exploitation of man and earth in the name of efficiency. So the conflict is not between conservation and development, but it is the conflict in between the reckless exploitation. Men are exploiting nature in the name of development. We are going to establish a factory. The trees are there, just cut it down. Okay, so we are giving it the name of development, but in the name of development we are exploiting, destroying the nature. Historians tell us that the modern age began with the will to freedom of the individual, and the individual came to believe that he had rights with no corresponding obligation. And it is mentioned, historians, that to tell us humans are having the right, having the freedom, but we are thinking that we have the freedom but we don't have any duties. The man who got ahead was the one who commanded admiration. No questions were asked as to the methods or the price which others had to pay. So, one who is going for the development, he is being praised. And what others are paying, it is not known to anyone. The industrial civilization has promoted the concept of the efficient man, he whose entire energies are concentrated on the producing more in a given unit of time and from a given unit of manpower. Groups of individuals who are less competitive and according to the test less efficient are regarded as lesser breed. For example, the older civilization, the black and brown peoples, women and certain professions. And it is also mentioned that some people are known as developed and some people are lower in skill. So it is mentioned what price such efficiency now and is not reckless a more appropriate term of such behavior. So we are destroying the nature recklessly. So what price that we are going to pay? Some people are known as lesser developed and some people are known as more developed. But still the same question is there, that is what is the price that we are going to pay for it? All the isms of the modern age, even those which in the theory known the private profit principle, assume that man's cardinal interest is acquisition. The profit motive, individual or collective, seems to overshadow all else. This overriding concern with self today is the basic cause of the ecological crisis. So here, whatever it is, men are self-oriented. Okay, men are selfish. So they are not focusing on the ecological crisis, but what are they doing? They are trying for their own development. Pollution is not a technical problem. The fault lies not in science and technology, such as, but in the sense of values of the contemporary world, which ignores the rights of others and is oblivious of the longer perspective. So pollution is not at all a technical problem, but the problem is with the world. And it is mentioned there are grave misgivings that the discussion on ecology may be designed to distract attention from the problems of war and poverty. So, it is a misgiving theory that if we are focusing on ecology, we will be misguided from war and poverty. We have to prove to the disinherited majority of the world that ecology and conservation will not work against their interest, but will bring an improvement in their life. But we have to think that ecology and conservation of it will not disregard something, but it will give improvement to the life of people. To withhold technology from them would deprive them of vast resources of energy and knowledge. This is no longer feasible, nor will it be acceptable. So if we are not providing them with technology, it means we are depriving them of all the benefits. The environmental problems of developing countries are not the side effects of excessive industrialization, but reflect the inadequacy of development. So, environmental problem which is coming from the developed country, it is not because of the development, but it is the inefficient, insufficient use of the technology. The rich countries may look upon development as the cause of environmental destruction, but to us it is one of the primary means of improving the environment for living or providing foods, water, sanitation and shelter, of making the desert green and the mountains habitable. The research and preservation of dedicated people have given us an insight which is likely to play an important part in shaping of our future plans. We see that however such men hankers after material goods, they can never give him full satisfaction. Thus, the highest standard of living must be achieved without alienating people from their heritage and without despoiling nature of its beauty, freshness and purity to essential to our life. So, what is mentioned? Look, it is mentioned that people are thinking the country which is more developed, they are more polluted. No, this is not correct. But the thing is that there is inadequate use of knowledge. Okay, suppose there is a factory, sewage is there, and the sewage should be treated properly so that it will not create any pollution. But no, it is not happening. People with a motive to get more and more profit, they are looking down, means they are just not looking at all these problems, all these issues. At the same time, some dedicated people are there. They have the insight how to develop the environment, and they are also trying to save the future. And it is mentioned that even when men are hankering, men are running after material pursuit, material pleasure, but still, if there is no peace in life, then nothing is there. At the same time, it is also mentioned that we can develop the country, we can develop the world, but without alienating, means eradicating people from their natural resource, from their heritage, then only. And we are also forgetting that these things are essential part of our life. For example, there are trees around me. If there will be no tree, I can't live. It is a single thing. I can't get the oxygen. There will not be any food production. How can people live? But we are forgetting all these things. We are forgetting about the primary things. The most urgent and basic question is that of peace. Nothing is so pointless as modern warfare. Nothing destroys so instantly, so completely as the diabolic weapons which not only kill but maim and deform the living and act to be burned, which poison the land, leaving alone trials of ugliness, barrenness and hopeless desolation. What ecological project can survive a war? So here it is mentioned that the urgent question is peace. Okay? And modern warfare. Warfare means the rules, the principles that are being followed in a war. And nothing destroys. So here it is mentioned that there are some weapons that can kill buck of people, huge number of people in a fraction of seconds. And it also can poison the land. And a number of things. The lands can be barren instead of making it fertile. So a number of things can happen. So which ecological projects we can survive a war? Means if there will be war, everything will be spoiled, everything will be damaged. It is clear that the environmental crisis which is confronting the world will profoundly alter the future destiny of our planet. No one among us, whatever our status, strength or circumstance, can remain unaffected. The process of change challenges present international policies. Will the growing awareness of one earth and one environment guide us to the concept of one humanity? Will there be more equitable sharing of environmental cost and greater international interest in the accelerated progress of the less developed world, or will it remain confined to a narrow concern based on exclusive self-sufficiency? So, what is the future of our planet? So, will there be the awareness, one earth, one environment? Will people be conscious? Can we be saved from all these things? And what is the progress that is going to take place in the developed world? So all these are the questions rising. The first essays in narrating economic and technological disparities have not succeeded because the policies of aid were made to subserve the equation of power. We hope that the renewed emphasis on self-reliance brought about by the change in the climatic for aid will also promote a search for new criteria of human satisfaction. So what is mentioned here, that there is no match in between the power and the ecological principles, means the way by which we can save the ecology. But still it is mentioned that we have to promote a search for a new criteria for human satisfaction. In the meantime, the ecological crisis should not add to the burdens of the weaker nations by introducing new consideration in the political and trade policies of rich nations. So at the same time, this ecological crisis should not burden up in the poor countries by implementing new rules and regulations which can affect them politically and also which can affect them economically. It would be ironic if the fight against pollution were to be converted into another business out of which a few companies, corporations or nations would make profit at the cost of the many. So, there are policies, but it should not be turned into business by which few countries will benefit it and others will be the sufferer. Here is a branch of experimentation and discovery in which scientists of all nations should take interest. They should ensure that their findings are available to all nations unrestricted by patents. So, they should find out some way how to prevent this pollution or how to protect the ecology, and it should not be patented. Means every country should be able to adopt it. Life is on the other one and the world is one. Our life is one. world is also one. And all these questions are interlinked. The population explosion, poverty, ignorance and disease, the pollution of our surrounding, the stockpiling of nuclear weapons and biological and chemical agents of destruction, all are parts of vicious circle. Each is important and urgent, but dealing with them one by one would be wasted effort. So all these are our problem. Ecological balance, poverty, ignorance, disease, pollution, surrounding, but we have to deal with all these things. So it's difficult, but still we have to deal with them one by one. It has been my experience that people who are at cross purpose with nature are cynical about mankind and ill at ease with themselves. Modern man must re-establish an unbroken link with nature and with life. He must again learn to involve the energy of growing things and to recognize, as did the ancients in India centuries ago, that one can take from the earth and the atmosphere only as much as one puts back into them. And in their hymn to earth, the sages of the Atharva Veda chanted, I quote, what of thee I dig out, let that quickly grow over. Let me not hit thy vitals or thy heart. So can man himself be vital and of good heart and conscious of his responsibility. So what is mentioned? In the last paragraph it is mentioned that we can exploit the nature, we can do everything, whatever we can do. But there are our ancestors. Millions ago, there were people who were preserving the nature. And what we have to do? We have to take that much of thing from the earth as much as we can give back. If we are cutting down a tree, we must be acquainted and we must plant 2 new trees. Then only we can protect the environment. The same thing is being mentioned, and it is being, means Atharva Veda is being mentioned here, and it is mentioned that what he is digging out, he must be able to put it in. Understood? So what is the theme of this paragraph? It is all about ecology and how to save it. But we have to save it without causing financial crisis, without causing more problem for the poorer nations. Okay? Thank you. Have a nice time.